In today's episode, I will talk about information overload, which is without a doubt one of the biggest challenges of our time. You'll discover 5 big ways information overload can and does do you more harm than good, as well as tips on what you can do to get started on dealing with the challenge of being exposed to too much information. Stay tuned to learn more. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Philosophy Podcast, a bite-sized weekly podcast focused on empowering you to think better and upgrade your life. So let's talk about information overload. Technology has made our lives easier, especially the internet. There is no doubt about what an incredible invention the internet is. It has put at our fingertips all that we need and want to know, and more. However, the internet can be a double-edged sword, because even though having an immense amount of information at your fingertips is very useful, it also comes at a price, and a big one at that. It just proves that old adage, the one about having too much of anything being bad. That's as accurate an assessment of our current situation as any, because we are practically swimming in a sea of information these days, and that's not always a good thing. In fact, most of the time, it is not a good thing. Now, you might be wondering, surely having a world of information at your fingertips is a good thing, right? You might initially think so. I used to think that it is a great thing to be swimming in a sea of knowledge, but it really is not very good for you, especially when you keep getting bombarded by it, and I'm going to tell you why. So here are 5 big reasons why the deluge of information you're exposed to on a day-to-day basis is not good for you. Number 1, information overload causes overwhelm. This is one of the biggest reasons why it's bad for you. So that's the first one. Number 2, it causes stress. Number 3, it causes confusion. Number 4, it causes distraction. And number 5, it causes unhappiness. Let's look into each of these in more detail now. So the first one, overwhelm. Think about your typical day. If you're like most people, you very likely start your day by checking the news, social media, and your email. You probably wake up with your phone in hand and check something on there. This is not the end of it though, as you'll very likely repeat this cycle several times throughout the day until you finally go to sleep. So you keep doing this over and over until you actually close your eyes. All that information that you take in, it has an impact on your mental energy level, and not a positive one. All that information causes overwhelm, and is why you often feel mentally exhausted even just halfway through the day. So all that information takes a toll on your mental energy. So overwhelm is the first negative reason to watch out for. Here's the second one, stress. The negative impact that the deluge of information that you're exposed to on a daily basis causes isn't just limited to overwhelm. The negative impact is not just limited to overwhelm. There are other negative impacts too, and a big one is stress. When you have too much information to process, it is normal to feel stressed because of it. And then there is also the exposure effect to negative and clickbaity stuff that media, especially social media, is full of. They are a major source of stress, and the more you are exposed to stuff like that, the more stress they cause. On top of those, there is also the impact of social media exposure and the feeling of inadequacy that it often results in. However you look at it, the more information you're exposed to, the higher usually your stress level will be. And it is largely down to the fact that the information most people are exposed to isn't really designed to benefit them. Rather, it's designed to benefit commercial interests, So Facebook, YouTube, Google, whatever you think about, The information that they send your way is really designed to help them rather than benefit you. So the more information you're exposed to, the higher usually your stress level will be. Conversely, and here's the good thing, cutting down your exposure to information can have a tangible positive impact on your stress and mental health. So if you want to improve your stress levels and mental health, you know what to do. So that's the second one, stress. The third one is confusion. You've learned how information overload causes overwhelm and stress. One other really common impact of this information rabbit hole is the confusion it can result in. The current pandemic is a great example of this. There is a huge amount of information out there nowadays about the do's and the don'ts of coronavirus safety. Unfortunately, not all of it is designed to help you. There is a lot of fake news out there about the reality of the pandemic, which can and does cause a lot of confusion. Then there is the current phenomenon of online hypochondria that checking up potential health problems can cause, but more on this next time. The thing to note here is that confusion is one of the most common side effects of information overload. And the easiest way to avoid that is to be picky about what information you expose yourself to, as well as limiting your overall exposure. By the way, this tips applies to all the negative impacts of information overload, two more of which you'll learn about next. So the fourth one is distraction and procrastination. The fourth negative side effect of information overload on my list is distraction, and it is a big one. Do you know the average number of time a person does something on their phone in a day? Based on a research by King Online University, it's around 2,617 times. That's 2,617 times a day that someone does something or the other on their phone. Sounds insane, doesn't it? But that's not all. A study by Penn State University found that on average, a person uses some form of gadget, which includes your smartphone, by the way, for more than 10.5 hours a day. That's nearly half the day spent using a gadget. And it all adds up. You might not realize just how often you use your phone until you actually keep a tally, because the small actions that you think are insignificant adds up over time. All these small interruptions have a major impact on your focus and productivity, so an easy way to improve your effectiveness is to cut down on such small distractions. So that's the fourth one, distraction. And the last one on the list, the last negative impact on this list of dealing with information overwhelm and overload is unhappiness. It is by far one of the biggest reasons why avoiding information overload is good for you. Let's face it, no one intentionally wants to choose unhappiness, right? No one wants to be unhappy. But unfortunately, carrying on with your usual daily practice is leading to exactly that. It's like you're choosing unhappiness by doing what you do on a daily basis. It's easy to feel negative and unhappy when you're overwhelmed, confused, and stressed. Let me put it to you in another way. It's harder to be happy when you're stressed, overwhelmed, and confused. Right? It's harder to be happy when you're stressed or overwhelmed or confused. Those states are not very conducive of happiness. When you're stressed or overwhelmed or confused, it's hard to be happy. And the longer those states last, the more negativity and unhappiness you'll experience. But the good thing is that there is an easy way to deal with this. The easy way to improve your level of happiness then is to reduce the amount of information you expose yourself to. New technologies like big data and AI are a direct result of this overwhelm. And computers are being used now to sift through this veritable sea of information that is being created each and every day. Each and every minute, every second even, creates more information. There is so much information these days that it is humanly impossible to sift through all of that. And we need machines and algorithms now to help us with this. But the good thing is that we don't even need all the information that we expose ourselves to on a regular basis. In fact, most of the information that you're exposed to is completely irrelevant, if not unhelpful. So it's important to think about what you expose yourself to. It is good to be careful about the information that you take in. There used to be a time when finding enough information was a challenge. I still remember the days when I needed to go to different libraries and spend hours finding the relevant information. But that's not an issue anymore. Maybe for a good thing. Now we have the opposite problem. We have so much information now that we are literally drowning in it. The World Economic Forum had a really interesting article on this, on how much data is being generated on a daily basis. And based on that, here are some interesting stats for you. So, take Facebook for example. On Facebook alone, on a daily basis, 4 petabytes of data is created every day. Now, if you don't know what petabytes are, 1 petabyte equals to 1 million gigabyte of data. 1 million gigabyte of data. No smartphone in the world has that sort of capacity. And imagine that just on a daily basis, just one day, 4 million gigabytes of data is created on Facebook alone. That's immense. That's insane. And then there are emails. 294 billion emails are sent every day. 294 billion emails. 500 million tweets are sent on a daily basis. 65 billion WhatsApp messages. And then searches, 5 billion searches are made every day. You have to admit that is a lot of information. No wonder it causes overwhelm. All this might seem incredible, and it is, but the rate of information that we create keeps on increasing. It's predicted that by 2025, so much information will be created on a daily basis that we can fill around 213 million DVDs every day. Just imagine that for a second. 213 million DVDs each and every day. We'll probably need a stadium-sized storage to store all the data, and even then it might not be enough. It's immense the scale at which information is being created. And from whatever point of view you look at it, be it personal or professional, information overwhelm is really not good for you. Neither does it do you good professionally, nor does it do you good on a personal level. It's not good for you professionally, and it is not good for your personal life and well-being. If anything, it does quite the opposite. It harms you both professionally and personally. Knowledge is power. Absolutely. But only if it is relevant and valuable. And even then, only if we are mindful about our exposure and consumption. Because just having more information does not help, but it can harm. Now, if you want to learn about more ways you can overturn and deal with the negative impacts of information overload, check out the next talk on tips and strategies for dealing with this very issue. As for today's talk, here's the bottom line. The one thing to remember. If you take away just one thing from this talk, let it be this. It's important to be more mindful about the information you expose your mind to, because too much of it does you more harm than good. Cut down your information exposure to improve your life. I'll catch you again next week. Until then, stay safe and stay sane.